Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why, and how of the newspaper analysis from the civil service examinations perspective. So today we are going to discuss the Hindu Daily edition dated 12th September 2023. The important topics which are to be discussed have been displayed on the screen, and the timestamping of the same has been provided in the description box below. So now let us begin our today's session. So this is the lead article which has appeared at page number 6 in today's The Hindu Daily edition. The topic reads Ridding India of Food Insecurity. So as it is very clear, the topic is about the food security or insecurity in India. As far as the immediate context of this topic is concerned, it is written in relation with the reference of State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World report, which is released by FAO, that is Food and Agriculture Organization. And the writer has quoted this report, and it says that according to this particular report, the proportion of populations across the countries which is unable to afford a healthy diet has increased. Since 2019, that is during the COVID times, this food insecurity challenge across the world, not only in India, has increased. Specifically talking about the report of 2021, it says that as far as India is concerned, estimated 74% of the population cannot afford a healthy diet. Recently also, it has been quoted in this particular article that on an average 11% of inflation has been witnessed when it comes to the food prices. So now from here an important concept emerged that whenever we have to talk, let's say, about food security, both the dimensions are important. That is, one is the quantity, second is the quality. So in this context, in today's session, we are going to learn about all the important associated dimensions with the food security. As far as the syllabus is concerned, this topic falls directly under General Studies Mains Paper 3 section because it mentions the economic development, and in the micro section, it mentions the issues of the food security explicitly. Going by the previous year question paper analysis, there have been several times the questions are being asked from particularly the theme of food security. For example, in UPSC 2013, the question was asked linking the food security to the subsidy bill and the associated WTO issues. The question said that the food security bill is expected to eliminate the hunger and malnutrition in India. There are certain apprehensions in its effective implementation along with the concerns it has generated in WTO. In 2017, the theme of food security was linked with the agricultural revolutions which we have witnessed from time to time. The question asked you to explain the various types of revolutions that took place in agriculture after independence in India, for example, Green Revolution, White Revolution, etc., and how these revolutions have helped in poverty alleviation and food security in India. To answer both these questions, the basic requirement is that you must be aware about the concept of the food security, its all the components, various challenges associated with it, the government steps which have already been taken, as well as the future strategy. So that is why in today's session, we are going to deal with all these components. We will deal with the basic concept of the food security, evolution of the food security system in India, then we will discuss certain challenges involved, and then we will also come up with a future strategy through which we can ensure food security within our national boundaries. So now let us start this discussion in detail by first focusing on the concept of food security. Now, according to the Food and Agriculture Organization, the basic definition of food security includes that the food must be accessible to all the people at all the times. That means it should be regular, it should be continuous, and it should be reliable in nature. Now first I would like to know that what do you think as the concept of food security? Is it just related to the amount or quantity of the food? If, for example, I say that there is a particular person and he is getting adequate food at all times whenever he or she desires so, can we call that person food secured? To answer this particular question, you should know that food security includes two components. One is the quantitative part and the other is the qualitative part. Obviously, the first and the basic requirement is
that adequate quantity of food must be available to all at all times. But then there is second important component also, which focuses not on the quantity but the quality of the part. Whether that food which is available to all the people is suitable to their dietary patterns and habits. Is it able to supply all the essential nutrients which are required to form a healthy body? So that is why it is to be recognized that food security has quantitative element as well as the qualitative element. For example, if I supply you rice 3 times a day for at least 1 year, can I call you that your qualitative needs of your body are fulfilled? No. So that is why if someone is malnourished, it might happen that he is getting adequate quantity of the food, but the nutrients which are required, he or she is not getting it, and hence we will call that situation as situation of food insecurity. So I hope that the basic definition, the concept of food security is clear to you, that it includes quantity as well as quality part, and both these things must be accessible to all the people at all the times. Then comes the important elements of food security. There are three important elements of food security. First is the availability part. That means that enough food must be available at first instance to supply to all the people. And second is the accessibility part. For example, we can imagine a situation that there is certain group of people who are living here, availability of food, let's say at a distance of 20 kilometers. That means that the first element of food security is ensured, that is the adequate availability, but that food must be transported to them. This is the second element, that is the accessibility part, whether this food is accessible to this. Now to understand accessibility, you must understand that accessibility can be in physical terms, accessibility can be in economic terms. For example, we have supplied the food to this particular section of people, but that food is not cheap and it is so expensive that this particular population is not able to afford that food. Again, then we are not making the food easily accessible, that is, the economic accessibility is not ensured. Then the third element of the food security is the utility. Does this food has utility for this section? For example, let's say this is a tribal population, and if we are not supplying the food which this section of population demands, again our entire objective of food security will be defeated. Hence, the utility is based on the consumption patterns of this section of society. So in order to ensure food security, you must focus on all these elements: quantity, quality, availability, accessibility, as well as utility. Now the third important part of food security is the components of the food security. Now the components of the food security with reference to India are two important things. One is the buffer stock. We all know that what is buffer stock? That is that minimum amount of food which is stored by the government in order to tackle the issues of inflation, food insecurity, hunger, malnutrition. The food which is stored as a buffer stock is then distributed to the population in order to reduce their vulnerabilities. Second is the PDS, that is public distribution system. The food which is stored in the buffer stock is provided to the population at a subsidized rate through the retail outlets, and this is what is known as public distribution system. So the basic concept of the food security deals with all these three things. Now let us see that how the concept of the food security system in India has evolved. Now the chart in front of you shows you the chronological order in which the food system in India has evolved. So the system started in 1950s when several states enacted their own state APMC Act. Now under these APMC Acts, there were a system of mandi which was established, whereby farmers can go and sell their produce. Then from these mandis, this food were bought by the end consumers. So this was done in order to have twofold objectives. First was to support the farmers so that the farmers can sell their produce easily. And second was to have a one-stop platform from where the consumers can buy that food. But there were a huge cases of corruption and leakages in this, and that is why this system could not bring us the desired objectives. In the next decade, that is the decade of 1960s, India witnessed a green revolution. Now, green revolution increased the agricultural production as well as productivity. Now, what is the difference between production and productivity? Production is absolute in nature. For example, let's say we have one agricultural field and this agricultural field is producing 100 quintals of wheat per year. In the next year, suppose we make one another agricultural field and we sow the seeds, and again this field is giving us 100 quintals. That means now we are getting 200 quintals of wheat from two agricultural fields. So this is rise in the absolute terms. Earlier we were getting only 100, but now because we have doubled our fields and hence we have doubled our production. This is the absolute rise, hence this is production. If somehow with the application of modern agricultural technologies, we are able to get 200 quintals instead of 100 quintals from that very agricultural field, this will be known as productivity. Productivity is measured per unit of land. So with the coming of the green revolution, production as well as productivity both increased. In 1960s, then Food Corporation of India was established as an institution to manage the food ecosystem in India. And in this very line, the policy of MSP, that is minimum support price, started, whereby it was guaranteed that if the farmers are producing certain crops, they will be guaranteed that they will be paid a certain minimum amount in order to protect those farmers. In 1970s, we witnessed the White Revolution. As the Green Revolution was primarily in the terms of wheat and rice, the White Revolution was primarily in the dairy sector. Then in 1980s, we witnessed that MSP was expanded for other crops also. For example, not just rice and wheat, they were expanded to other crops. And also the similar type of system was started in the sugarcane industry also, which was known as FARP system. In the next decade, in 1990s, we witnessed the starting of the decentralized procurement, whereby the states were allowed to procure directly from the farmers and then distribute them to the consumers. This reduced the amount of cost involved. This reduced the time because the states became the immediate authority to coordinate with the farmers, and therefore the decentralized procurement system worked significantly. In this very decade, we also started targeted public distribution system in order to reduce further leakages and to ensure effective implementation of PDS. Also in this very decade, we came up with a midday meal scheme to specifically focus towards the food needs of children who are going to school. In 2020s, India came up with Antyodaya Yojana in order to benefit the poorest of the poor section. In 2013, then we came up with the National Food Security Act, whereby a legal guarantee was made to ensure subsidized food grains to almost 67% of the total population of India. And in the recent times, we have again come up with numerous schemes to ensure food security. For example, One Nation, One Ration Card, Fat Tax, Fortification and Biofortification, etc. So this is how the food security system in India has evolved. Despite all this thing, we also know that the food security, the data of malnourishment is not very good for India. If we compare India with other countries, the data suggests us that around 25% of the global hunger population lives in India. Because of the acute malnourishment, 4 out of every 10 children are not able to reap their true potential. National Family Health Survey reports have pointed out that there has been a significant rise in stunting as well as wasting. Further, the WHO report also claimed that India is passing through double burden of disease, which means that undernourishment is still not tackled, and on the sidelines, the overnourishment problem is increasing. And the direct impact of this is the rising cases of obesity among India's youth. So in this very line, we should understand that what are the existing challenges that despite so many steps, still we are not able to tackle this issue in India. There are several challenges in India which hinders the food security. First is the reduced land as well as agriculture productivity. Despite the fact that we witnessed green revolution which increased our agriculture productivity, but in recent times because of the losses in groundwater and excess extraction, because of the recent land use changes, deforestation, because of the soil degradation and excessive use of chemical based fertilizers, our agricultural productivity is deteriorating. Further, because of urbanization, industrialization, rising population, the land available for the agriculture is also getting reduced, and most of these lands are being converted into commercial sites. The second issue is related to the maladministration. Even if we get the enough amount of food with our agencies, there are issues in relation to their administration and distribution. Because of the high corruption, wastage, and poor procurement systems, the food which is there with our agencies is not able to reach to the end consumers. So, this shows that the challenge of accessibility still persists. This was in relation to the challenge of availability. Third comes the challenge of distribution. Because of the high logistics costs as well as lack of multimodal logistics, India is not able to distribute its food to the end consumers. And when those end consumers live in remote areas, for example, the hill areas, tribal areas, etc., then the problem grows multifold. The fourth is related to the policy issues. For example, the minimum support price system is highly skewed in nature, focusing excessively on 2 to 3 crops and ignoring the other crops like pulses, maize, millets, etc. Similarly, One Nation One Ration Card scheme is not still fully functional, and there are also issues related to the migration. In India, we have a very complex migration patterns, because what happens is, let us assume that there is a laborer who is in Bihar. For 2 months, he come to Delhi for work, and then after 2 months, he shifts to Gujarat, and then with the change of seasons, he shifts to Karnataka, and then again, let's say he comes back to Bihar to support his family, and this cycle continues. So what happens is that due to regular and continuous shifting of these laborers, it becomes very difficult to track them. And if we are not able to track them, then we cannot supply the continuous food to them, obviously. Because for 2 months he is getting registered in Delhi, then for next few months he is getting registered in some other state. So this becomes very complex, and we still do not have dedicated policy to address this particular issue, because One Nation One Ration Card is still not fully functional. Then the next challenge is in relation to the rising weather extremities. We all know that disasters like floods, droughts, cyclones, heat waves, cold waves, all these have tremendously increased in the backdrop of climate change, and these weather extremities directly impact the crops, their production as well as productivity. And the last challenge is of the social dimension. Now, because of very high population, there is a very high competition as well. There are certain sections who are more dominant, they have adequate access to food resources, but then there are vulnerable sections also. For example, minorities, tribal areas, transgenders. These population do not have access to adequate food. So hence, the food security in India also has a very strong social biasness. Then comes the poverty part as well as education part. People are not educated, they are not aware about the dietary needs of their body, and hence, despite the fact even if they get enough quantity of food, the quality aspect remains ignored. Similarly, because of the poverty, the economic accessibility to these food resources get reduced. So these are the various challenges which still haunt India in order to ensure food security. Now, what is your role? If you are going to be the administrators, then it will be your role to address all these challenges, and hence we must know that what future strategy can we as an administrators adopt in order to tackle this issue and to make India fully food secured and healthy nation. In this regard, now let us see some of the possible steps. First is that we must invest in agricultural innovation. We must focus on integrated pest management practices. we must also focus on agroecological cropping. What is agroecological cropping? This means that farmers must sow those crops which are in harmony to the climate of that particular region as well as to the soil of that region. For example, the water intensive crops like sugarcane, wheat, rice, these crops must not be grown in those areas which are facing acute water crisis. Then we can also invest in organic farming because organic products have proven themselves to have better health benefits for the population, and that is how we can address the quality angle of the food security. Second is then we should have certain policy reforms as well. We must end the open-ended procurement system because this system increases the chances of wastage, which further does not allow the adequate quantity to reach to the end consumers, and a huge amount of food is just wasted. Then we must also focus on the MSP rationalization, and we must make our farmers aware about the MSPs which are also being provided to the other crops as well. And in the last, we must also focus on the reforms of the Food Corporation of India. And these elaborate reforms are already being given by the Shanta Kumar panel. For this, you should also look at certain recommendations given by Shanta Kumar in order to reform the Food Corporation of India. The third issue is we must focus on infrastructure also, as we have witnessed that India has a very high logistics cost to the tune of 12 to 15%, which in turn increases the cost of the products as well. So that is why we must focus on the multi-modal logistics. Then we must also focus on the cold storage, containers and warehouses. This is done in order to increase the shelf life and to reduce the wastage in order to distribute that food efficiently. In the last comes the awareness and sensitization part. If we as educated people do not know that what exactly are our dietary requirements, then how can we expect the people living in tribal areas or rural areas that they know exact dietary requirements of their own? Further, the dietary requirements also change with the changes in the socio-economic as well as cultural levels. So all this must be studied, and then all that information must be spreaded in order to make the people aware for their dietary habits. And for this, Panchayati Raj institutions, self-help groups, NGOs, etc. can be roped in, linking with district administration. So these steps are very essential in order to ensure food security. Now let us revise this topic in brief once again. In this very line, initially we discussed the concept of the food security, its FAO based definition, important elements, and then the important components. Here we understood that food security is not just in the terms of quantity but also in terms of quality, and it must be regular, continuous as well as reliable. In continuation with this, coming to the specific context of India, we saw that what is the chronology which describes the evolution of the food security systems in India. And here, starting from 1950s till today, we saw that what were the important policies which were taken in each decade in order to fulfill the goals of food security, hunger as well as malnourishment. Then we came to the challenge part. The question naturally which came to our mind was that despite all these number of steps taken by Government of India as well as state governments, why still we face one of the biggest hunger as well as malnourishment issues in the world? The answer to this question is because there lie several challenges. These challenges are in terms of reduced land and agriculture productivity, maladministration, distribution, policy issues, weather extremities, as well as the social challenges. And in the last, we discussed that how these challenges can be overcome by adopting the future strategy on the basis of investing in agricultural innovations, doing the policy reforms, focusing on the infrastructure to support this food ecosystem, and in the last, focusing towards the increasing awareness and sensitization of all the sections of population across India. So this sessions makes you understand the basics of food security and will definitely help you to write beautiful answers in your mains examination.
So this topic has appeared at page number 13 and is in relation to the recent Morocco earthquake, which has claimed more than 2,000 lives in Morocco. And this is the immediate context of this very news article. Now, as far as the UPSC examination is concerned, this topic is mainly relevant from the prelims perspective, that is basically the map location. So you must be knowing this fact that every year around 2 to 3 questions are asked from the world map related to certain important cities, mountain ranges, rivers, straits, etc. So in this very context, today also we are going to discuss some of the key map location or the physical features associated with this. However, when you go into the General Studies Mains Paper 3 section, there also we have a topic disaster management, right? But in today's session, we are only dealing with the important map based location aspects of the Morocco, right? So today we will be seeing this topic with the help of political maps of Africa as well as certain important features located in the country of Morocco. So first of all, if we see the political map of Africa, here is the location where Morocco country is located. That is the northwestern part of the African continent. If you see some of the important physical features, here we are having a Strait of Gibraltar which is connecting the Mediterranean Sea as well as the Atlantic Ocean, which is towards the north of Morocco. So this strait is very important. Now the basic understanding, what is basically a strait? Strait is a narrow water body as it is shown in the map over here. So this narrow water body is connecting two large water bodies, that is Atlantic Ocean as well as Mediterranean Sea. Other important features in this map, one is the Atlas Mountains. So it is in Morocco. Next is the Mololoya River. This is also important. And in the northern part of the Morocco, we have Rif Mountains, right? Again, here we have a Sahara Desert, that is the eastern boundary of the Morocco is marked by the Sahara Desert. So let us look at certain key facts about Morocco. As far as the Atlas Mountains are concerned, which we just had a look over here. So the highest peak of these Atlas Mountains is the Jebel Tobkal. As far as the social conditions or the social feature of this country is concerned, there is an important group of people known as Berbers or the Berber people. They are also called by their contemporary names like Amazigh or Imazighen. So in prelims, the question can also be asked in a manner like Berber community belongs to which of the following countries? As far as the climatic condition is concerned, the Mediterranean climate is the one which is experienced by Morocco. Again, what is the logic? The logic is the shifting of pressure belts. So you must be aware about the fact that the pressure belts do shift in different seasons because of the apparent movement of the sun between the Tropic of Cancer as well as Tropic of Capricorn. So this shifting of pressure belt is responsible for the Mediterranean climate in this part of the region as well as the southern Europe, that is this part of this European continent, right? Now, a Moroccan traveler Ibn Battuta. Now, mention of Ibn Battuta comes in the medieval history. So, Ibn Battuta has visited India during the reign of Muhammad bin Tughlaq during this particular time period, and he was a Moroccan traveler. So, this is also important, right? As far as the resources of Morocco is concerned, it is known for a well distributed resource of phosphates, and this phosphate is primarily used for fertilizers as well as other products. So this was related to resource distribution, physical aspects of Morocco, etc. But when we have to discuss that the Morocco has experienced a devastating, a massive earthquake, the question arises that why it has experienced such a huge earthquake. The reason lies in the plate tectonics, right? So if you see this particular map, here you will see that there are several faults in Morocco. For example, here we have Gloria fault, right? Here we have Atlantis fracture zone. Then here we have Rift Valley. Obviously, this is not very much important as far as the GS geography is concerned. But the thing is that this region is tectonically active because of the fact that here we are having the Eurasian continental plate. This is basically the African plate. This part is known as the Nubian plate, right? So there are again certain minor plates in this region, again not very much important from the general studies perspective. Important thing is that we all know that because African plate is moving towards north and northwestward, where it is colliding with this Eurasian plate. So this particular region is marked by high tectonic activity, and that is why Morocco has experienced such earthquakes, right? So this is the reason of high tectonic activity, and thus Morocco has experienced earthquake. So this was the basic reason for this massive earthquake. So this topic has appeared at page number 13. The topic reads, US as well as Vietnam warn against threats in the South China Sea. So as you must be already aware about the fact that South China Sea is basically one of the geopolitical hotspots as far as the global strategic policy making is concerned. There are competing claims of various countries, as well as there is an aggressive behavior of China in that particular region. And that is why many a times several countries, including US as well as India, have advocated for peaceful and consensus based approach for this particular region. So in this context, however, this news is not very relevant because such type of news in the context of South China Sea appears on almost regular basis. But what is more important is the map location of this particular region. Which are the important islands? What are the bordering countries? What are the north to south or south to north location of various seas in this particular region? And that is why this topic hence becomes important from the perspective of prelims examination. If you have gone by the syllabus, UPSC writes in prelims syllabus the first headline as the current events of national as well as international importance. And therefore, in this context, we will look at the map of the South China Sea.
So in this particular map, I would like to attract your attention towards the north-south order of some important seas in this area. So in this particular map, the northernmost sea is the Sea of Okhotsk, which lie off the coast of Russia. Further, if you go more towards north, you are aware that there lie a Bering Sea. After Bering Sea, we have Sea of Okhotsk, and after Sea of Okhotsk, we have the Sea of Japan, which is also known as the East Sea. Now, here you should be very aware about this fact that the East Sea and the East China Sea are different because the East Sea refers to the Sea of Japan, which lies north of the East China Sea. One more important thing is, which is not demarcated in this map, is that between the Sea of Japan and the East China Sea, in this particular location, we have Yellow Sea. So now again, Bering Sea, Okhotsk Sea, Sea of Japan, Yellow Sea, East China Sea, and then comes the South China Sea. Now please be aware about this, that South China Sea is in the south of China as the name suggests, because many of the students confuse the location of South China Sea in this particular area. And its location is one of the biggest reasons because the continental shelves of the countries like Vietnam, Philippines, China, they overlap in this particular area. And that is one of the biggest issues and the controversies regarding the control of the resources of South China Sea. China, being the aggressive country and a dominant military as well as economic power, it always tries to ensure its dominance in this particular region. And because you are already aware about the geopolitical interventions made by China and US in each other's zone of influence to enhance their particular influence, this topic has appeared in news because the US warships have passed the South China Sea, which has raised eyebrows in the region. Now we will come to this particular map, which is a zoomed version of the South China Sea. In the South China Sea, there are some important locations. For example, the Scarborough Shoal, Paracel Islands, Spratly Islands, and the James Shoal. Now you need to memorize these names because these are very important. Further, there also lies the Gulf of Tonkin at the coast of the Vietnam and China. Further, another important thing is the 9 dash line. Now, this U-shaped line is a 9-dash line which connects the outermost physiological features of the South China Sea with reference to the Chinese coastline. Now, the geopolitical importance of 9-dash line is that China claims that all of the resources lying within the 9-dash line from the coast of China, that is, this particular region, China has a unilateral control over it. The issue is regarding the ownership of this particular area and the control over this particular area. But again, countries like Vietnam, Philippines, Australia, Indonesia, they have contested the claims of China in this particular region because they also say that their continental shelves extend towards this area also, and because there is overlapping of continental shelves, China unilaterally cannot change the order of this particular region. Nevertheless, from the prelims point of view, you need to be aware about all the locations which we have discussed in this short and brief session.
This topic has appeared at page number 1. The topic reads Launch of West Asia Economic Corridor is a historic step. The immediate context of this very topic is that there has been a recent meeting between Indian Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi as well as the Saudi Arabian Prince bin Salman. So, if you go by the context, recently, days after the launch of India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor, both of these, that is Narendra Modi as well as Prince bin Salman, they met each other, and India described Saudi Arabia as one of the most important strategic partners of India. So, this is a very important development whereby India is trying to involve more with West Asia in order to strengthen its geopolitical advantage. So there was a India-Saudi Strategic Partnership Council. This was the first meeting which was co-chaired by PM Modi as well as Prince bin Salman. So this is also important, India-Saudi Strategic Partnership Council. In this particular council, various aspects of trade related to defense, energy, security, education, technology, transportation, healthcare, tourism, culture, space, semiconductor, etc. were discussed. So basically, we are trying to identify those possible areas of cooperation with Saudi Arabia in order to have more strengthened bilateral relationship as well as to strengthen India's involvement in the West Asian region. In this very line, $100 billion investment was also talked about, which was initially promised by Saudi Arabia. And this $100 billion investment was to be invested mainly in the energy projects. In this very meeting, India as well as Saudi Arabia said that they would upgrade their energy ties to the comprehensive energy partnership. So, when you come to the international relations, such words, such vocabulary is very important. Not mainly from the prelims perspective, vocabulary is mainly important from the mains perspective when you write answers, right? Second important thing is that in the prelims, the questions related to such events of international importance are asked. So that is why this topic is basically being done in factual manner in order to tackle the prelims perspective. So we have discussed India-Saudi Strategic Council. But in the context, you also read about India-Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. So what is it? Let us discuss it. So basically, this is the economic corridor which is to be developed between India, West Asia, that is Saudi Arabia as well as UAE, and the Europe, that is Israel, Greece. The important partners and stakeholders of this corridor are UAE, India obviously, Saudi Arabia, European Union, France, Italy, Germany, as well as US. So US is important, right? So basically, it will be an economic integration between the regions of South Asia, West Asia, as well as Europe. So if you can see, the names of the important cities are also mentioned over here. It will start from Mumbai. We linked two cities of UAE, that is Jabal Ali and Al Ghuwaifat. Then three cities of Saudi Arabia, that is Riyadh, Harad, as well as Al Haditha. Then Haifa in Israel, Piraeus in Greece. So this project is basically a rail and shipping corridor which is a part of the Partnership for Global Infrastructure Investment, that is PGII. And this PGII basically is a collaborative effort of which group? G7 nations. Again, important. The important partners of this corridor are these members, right? So we have US. Why we have US? Because this is a part of this particular infrastructure investment which is led by G7 nations, right? And it has also been considered as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. So it will see the development of railway links, electricity cable, hydrogen pipeline, as well as high speed data cable. And therefore, this project is dubbed as a green and digital bridge across continents and civilizations. Right? So this project is expected to bring various benefits also. For example, it would increase the prosperity among the countries which are related to this particular project. It will also deal with the lack of infrastructure, a major issue which these developing countries face. Further, it can also address the issues related to securities which originate in particularly West Asian region. And also, as we have discussed, that it can counter the China's aggressive tendencies and can further strengthen the G20 grouping, which the meeting of which we all know was recently held in New Delhi. So these were certain key facts related to the India Middle East Europe corridor in the context of recent meeting between Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well as Prince bin Salman. So that was all for today. All the very best and study hard.